Thank you. My name is Patrick Mouton, and I'm the Executive Director of Facilities Planning and Construction in Aldine School District. And Aldine is a district that's north of Houston Independent School District. We're about 111,000 square miles. We have about just under 70,000 students in our district. We have about 84 campuses that we maintain in the school district. And a little bit about myself. I've been with Aldine for about 23 years. My background is in electrical engineering, did that for about 5 years before moving to the school district. And so since then, I've oversaw the construction of 34 campuses with a myriad of renovation projects that went from remodeling classrooms to building middle schools with myself. One of the crazy things we did before when we were a smaller school district, because I came from engineering, I knew nothing about this world, and I was led into being in the department. We were one of the only school districts that I know of that performed the services of a general contractor. So I had the owner's hat, and I had the general contractor's hat, which I held all the contracts to the subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, drywallers, and we did it all. I would not recommend anybody try and do that. Once we weren't mom and pop shop anymore, so we were doing smaller districts. We were economically disadvantaged school district, so we didn't have a lot of money. Doing more with less was kind of standard operating procedure. And so we had to do something different when we got bigger and start bringing in general contractors, because we were doing bond issues, 84 million, 111 million. This last bond issue we passed was 2015, was $798 million. I hear these billion-dollar bond programs. For us, that was quite large, so we had to do things a little bit differently, and I was relieved. And so a little bit about myself, Perla.
Hello, good morning. My name is Perla Lane, and I'm the Director of Facilities Planning and Construction for Aldine. I am so thankful that I was not with Aldine when they were the general contractor, that I came on after they had the aha moment and said, there's a better life after this type of world. So I come from the corporate America side. I landed this in my current position. I landed this probably about 2.5 years ago. Right after they awarded the bond that we're just getting ready to wrap up. So it was in 4 parts. They had the technology, new construction, renovation, and the repairs. But I won't give all of it away. I want Patrick to lead us into that, to bring us all together on why we're actually here and what we want to encourage those that are here in the room to consider when you're putting all of your data together for your higher leadership.
So in the intro, it's kind of talked about, we talk about the quality, the schedule, and the cost. There's many different variations of this, but it's all essentially the same message. And it's kind of, I think of this like a camera tripod, where you're trying to level. So once you establish all those, the quality, the cost, the schedule, once you turn it loose, any change in those start to affect the other. If you start getting behind the schedule, your quality starts to go down and your cost may start to go up or anything else. If you start losing money, then your quality goes down. They're all connected. But it seems like the quality tends to take care of itself during the design phase, and the budget is established once the bond is passed and you got the budget to work toward. But the one that needs the most attention, in my opinion, is the schedule. And why is that so important? It's important, as it was mentioned before, we do all the planning and the vision and what needs to happen. But now we need to, if it's a bond that's passed, it means that these facilities are needed. They're needed, and we got to get it to the end user in a timely fashion and meet the time that we said. To delay it, it just affects everyone, the teachers, the staff, even down to the students. What you really want to avoid is missing your deadline and then try and have to move them in once the school year has started or at the summer break, or the winter break. You don't want to do that. So just stick to the schedule. And so, here we talk about that, the different parts. But Not being on time, we talked about how this affects everything, but being vigilant about the schedule. You know, you have to start from day one. My thing is, once you release the contract, you're already behind schedule. So let's not talk about how we got time in the schedule and things like that. We'll pick it up. You need those days at the end. There's always something that's going to come up. And sometimes it's not within the project, it's external things that will come up. There might be a flood, might be a hurricane in our area. There might be a delay at we had one where a fire happened at the manufacturing plant. Or one time something got stuck at the border crossing from Mexico over. There's all kind of things that can happen. You're gonna need those times later. And so when we were building a high school, and I thought, hey, look, you know, I did research, and my research said it takes about 22 months to build a high school. So I planned it out. I said, I'm gonna give them 26. It'll be a cakewalk. Just be a cakewalk. So here it is, 27 months late, or into the schedule. I still had some time, and me and the president of the company are discussing what does it mean to be substantially complete. I want to talk about what's in the contract documents, and he want to talk about what's industry standard. I don't need it, so I offered to get an English teacher of his choice to read the specs to us and interpret what that means. The point I'm trying to make, if you're not vigilant from day one discussing the schedule, it leads to tougher discussions at the end.
And you got to also remember, you have to train and reiterate to all of your consultants, not just contractors, but you have to make them understand that you have to start with the end user in mind. That's the first step. What is our timeline? Every contractor, every consultant wants to do it according to 18, 24 months. That does not include us as the client. They don't even think about us. And I know because I came from corporate America, my timeline was substantial completion. I lived the owner side 2.5 years ago. We had 8 campuses, 2 EC pre-Ks, 2 elementaries, 3 middle schools, and 1 career and technical high school that all had to open up in 18 months. Plus, they wanted to reconfigure the entire district. Now, in my mindset, why did I sign up for this? I have no idea. But I knew what I could do best was scheduling. Every contractor had to understand that. Every facilities planning and operations had to understand the significance of the scheduling portion of this process. You can go, Roy, you can go and get all the money in the world, but it is the scheduling that drives our success at the end of the day to make our higher leadership successful.
I have to say this was one of my biggest accomplishments in my career, is to take that task on. And my eyes got this big when he told me, but it had to happen because the grade changes was happening, and you couldn't do grade changes this year and next year. It had to happen at that one time. And so plan B was deferred back to plan A, because we had to commit, and everyone had to commit. And we were able to do that, get buy-in from everyone. So just what we're going to try and do is talk about, you know, the management's triangle and how that affects everything and the scheduling. And the things you have to have is some milestones there. You have to talk about these milestones and have everybody clear about those. And then there's some core things that you want to make sure and include, because a lot of these things people tend to forget. And we just have a sample schedule to look at, some of the things to look out for. Okay, so the milestones. Notice to proceed. That was one that was used on me before many years ago, was that I didn't get my notice to proceed for a week. I need 7 more days to schedule. So after the board meets, that's when I'm on high alert about that. Get the notice to proceed out. Is it out? In fact, we have the notice to proceed letter ready, dated to sign, and so the next date, it has to go out, because that's one of the tools that the general contractors use. You know, and so the shop drawings, you got to get those out. And, you know, everybody's high alert on the steel and the door frames and things like that, but forget about the toilet fixtures and things like that. And so, are you waiting on light fixtures? Where are the light fixtures? Well, we just got the submittals. We just got those a month ago. Within a month, 2 months at the most, you get them all done. What's wrong with that? Just get them all done, move on. Local agency permits.
Oh, boy.
Where's
Oh,
HID?
boy.
I think he left.
See, everybody's laughing.
Everybody's
I
laughing.
understand.
But it's not brand new. It didn't just happen that we got to go get a permit. So we established those relationships, and it's coming down the pike. We try and meet, make sure, what are you looking for? What can we get done now? Is there any concessions we can do? And so one of the things in our county, in Harris County, we're in the city of Houston, city of Humble. We're also in Harris County. Harris County will allow us to do work that they can't see. As long as I'm driving by the site and I can't see it, you can do it. So we can start trenching, doing grade beams. There's things they'll allow us to do as we're trying to get the building permit to start going above ground. So there's things that we try and do, but you gotta be thinking about these things. We deregulated in our electricity, about 15 years ago. It used to be easy to get electricity. Today it's like pulling teeth. And so, you have to start that process early, try and get all the utilities out of the way early so you're not trying to get the power on when you're trying to get the chiller going. That's going to be
How many of you guys love your utility providers?
So.
Yeah, Clarence, you love them. I heard your speech yesterday.
The structural steel, you got to get that out there. You got to know when it's coming. You got to make sure you know that the chiller, when it's going to start up. Now when people are, hooking up electricity and getting all these things, when will this start? Because you got to get air in the building. When I was doing the work of the general contractors, the casework used to always drive me crazy because they were always late. And, they would get it there, oh, it's here. But it's always missing parts. Always missing parts. So I want that stuff on the site, I'll find a place. I'll rent a warehouse. Just get it here so I'm not waiting on it. So we talked about the door frames and the hardware. Got to get those. And the fire marshal in our area.
All-time favorite,
They're
that fire
king.
marshal.
They're gods in our area. So we got to make
And
the
yours
fire
too.
marshal. So, but those got to be things that you got to be talked about and get the buy-in and get that on the schedule. The other things now into the schedule, you got to make sure you have some of these other things. The notice, we talked about the notice to proceed, getting on site. So you got the notice to proceed. When will you be on site? We're coming and I say every day is important because you'll need those days later. Site clearing and grubbing, your sanitary and your water connections, those other utilities, getting the building envelope dried in so you can start, closing in the building, putting those finishing touches on them. Gas utility service, we talked about the fire marshal, the health department inspection. We had a neighboring district where they got everything done, but they had the health department giving them issues, and they couldn't open the kitchen. And you got to get all those things out of the way. If you're not on city water, anything like that, we have mud districts in the area, so we got to make sure that we have them on board, have their inspections, everything done. Project delays.
My all-time favorite.
Yeah. I don't know about y'all, but it's been raining all my life.
In Houston.
So rain days is nothing new. It's part of the schedule. It's part of the schedule. But there's things that happen, and if we're all talking about the schedule, we're all vigilant. We have these owner contractors meeting from day one. Every meeting, that's when I perk up. Are you ahead of schedule, behind schedule, or on schedule? Make that, it's one of those three answers, just simply, with nothing added to it. And that way you'll know every month, because if you don't do that, when you get to the end of the schedule, general contractors tend to massage the truth. How did we get here? But if you start from the first meeting and make that part of the pay application request, it's open conversation. And when things are being delayed, if your architects are not returning those drawings, hey, we don't need to leave the meeting until we get an answer. Don't leave the site until this is resolved. Don't go back to the office. You knew about this for 2 weeks. Let's resolve it now. Let's make a sketch. What do we need to do? What we do is not rocket science. It's not brand new. Somebody has a solution to all the problems we have. So let's get them resolved at the meeting. Substantial completion date. Oh, general contractors love that one. And they also like to know when school starts.
And that's when you start having that serious conversation. It's not beneficial use.
Don't worry about when school starts. Let's worry about our contractual obligations, what we agreed to do with each other, because we got other things to do when you leave. The punch list, another one of my favorites.
30 days.
My thing is, when I was building, we punched as we go. When the concrete people were done pouring all the concrete, let's punch the job now. Let's do all that now. When the bricklayers are there, let's go ahead and punch that. Let's get all the grouts and everything taken care of, clean the brick, and do all the punch. My idea of a punch list is a utility man with a utility belt. You got a paintbrush, you got a hammer, screwdriver. That's my idea of it, but I'm in a fantasy world. But it shouldn't take 60 days to do the punch list. If you're taking more than 60 days, you're not doing a punch list, you're finishing the work. You're finishing the work. So you're not even substantially complete in my mind. But that's another story. And then final completion. There's a lot of talk about substantial completion in these documents, but it never talks about when are we going to agree to when we finally complete. I like to be clear about that. Let's establish a date. And so my experience, if you're vigilant from day one, and I do think that, people have a conscience and they try to do the right thing within some parameters. If you're talking about the issues through the project, you can resolve them together collaboratively instead of arguing about it at the end and whose fault it is, because that didn't help anything. And then you're out of time to make any adjustments. We had a situation where we had a freeze, and we were able to work with the contractor to try and make up days and things, and what could we do to recover? We also had permit delays. Those were legitimate excuses, and we worked with them to recover those days, and that was part of the challenges we had in that 18-month time frame. And I'm proud to say that with Perla's help, and it seemed like Perla's been working with me for years. She keeps reminding me, it's only been 2 years. But if you're, I heard someone say, be honest. You just be honest about the situation, you can resolve it together. But if you're not paying attention from day one, it's difficult conversations. And so I'm an executive director, there's a lot of CFOs in here, and so I usually report to folks like yourselves, and y'all don't want to hear any of that. And so, but what you could do is maybe take some of this information back to your team and make sure that it's being included as they plan their work.
So the year that we finished our eight new schools was 2 years ago. We had Hurricane Harvey, which devastated Houston. We had 2 hard freezes, which shut down all of our job sites. And then if that wasn't enough, we had 1 more tax day flood. But we still had to open up all of these campuses at the same time in August 2018. So we had a pretty aggressive schedule, and we had 4 contractors. I've already told you the school categories that we had, so it was very challenging. But how do you keep them honest? How do you get them to tell you where they are, what they need, without going through the long jibber-jabber that happens in a contract, in a construction project? You have to keep those conversations going. You have to stay vigilant. You have to have them give you their schedule, their 3-week look ahead in your OAC meetings. That is very important. You have to have those strong discussions, and don't let them just tell you, well, we'll get it done. That's not true. What they are thinking of is their substantial completion date. They are not thinking of the 3 months that your end users have to come in to set up the building, to get it ready for the students on the first day of school. So, when you're building your construction schedule, when you're planning for it from the very beginning, have that mindset, build with the end user in mind in the very beginning. What is that date? Because that date will never move. That's the date that you have committed to the community. That's the date your superintendent is all she's going to remember. That's the date that your community plan person that goes in and updates all your bond date information, that's all she's going to boast about. So you have to meet that date. These are the intricate pieces that are important to that date being successful. The construction is the construction, but this part is what everybody sees at the end on Twitter, Snapchat, and every social media that you can think of, which is my worst nightmare. How do you keep telling the truth when they see that you're behind? How do you do that? You have to have those strong discussions with your contractors from the very beginning. So here's a little sample contract, I'm sorry, sample schedule that we've just put together that we monitored all the time. It has all of the milestones that you'll ever think of. My personal favorite is the fire marshal, who can come in and make or break you at any given time. You want to add anything to it?
Yes, now when we do the schedule, one of the things that I have to have, if it's going to be a schedule put on my desk, everybody knows it has this. That's a baseline. Could you point out how that schedule has a baseline?
Oh, wait a minute.
You know, and
Yeah, it has 2 lines on it.
yeah,
There you go.
on the black side there. And when you move down to the
Actual start.
milestones that's shown, you can see where you're moving visually. It'll tell you if you're ahead or behind. And if you're running behind, you can have the discussion, okay, we're behind and they're legit. Now, how are we going to recover this time? Because the end date's not moving. And so what can we do to recover? So we talk about recovery schedules. But it's natural for a project to shift. It is natural. Sometimes that's just part of it. It shifts here, we make it up there, and it's on their own. But ever get to a point where the substantial completion date is in jeopardy, we have to have some discussion early, not a month before it's due to deliver.
Correct. You have to have your actual start and your actual finish. And you can require them to give you their baseline schedule. This is the contract. This is when they actually started. And have them put in their percent complete. My favorite is Microsoft project scheduling. Use whatever scheduling tool you want to use. But it'll give you an overall view of where you stand in your project and where it's going to come in and when it's going to finish. There are a lot of things in the back end that they're not thinking of that we need them to think of, and our 3 months is exactly what we need. One of my schedules, this shows a delay. You can start seeing how it was slipping. You can see the dots, you can see how it shifts, you can see the gray bar. It stays where it's going to stay, but it gives us the overall view of where we need to focus and what we need to do next.
Anything else to add to that? So that concludes our presentation. So if there's some things that we may have missed that you've experienced yourselves, we'd like to hear about those. If there's any questions that you may have for us. Yes.
Sure, Clarence.
So a couple things actually. So
Let me go back.
We actually started using Smart Sheet, shared scheduling as well, so it kind of helped a little bit change from what we had before. So now everyone locally can all see it. They kind of say, well, certain sections they can do certain things that they can. One thing that I always loved scheduling was the submittals. Most of which put the word submittal, and then open, start. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
But I always loved it, putting in all the actual packages and also keeping parts of it as well, but then linking those to the actual order and everything. And that was, to me, it always seemed like a really simple thing. Most people never did that. They always put the one word scenario, and it's got a really long bar.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why you're trying to avoid not getting those plumbing fixtures late while you're waiting on them. So if that's done, have them show you. The general contractors typically don't want to share all the information because they want some wiggle room. So the more they can keep you in the dark, the more they have some control. But share the information, let us know. So I understand completely what you're saying.
Yes.
That was actually going to be my question to you guys. So this sample project schedule that you're showing, is that the project schedule that you're requiring from the GC?
Yes. When we bid a job, we're asking them to submit a schedule. And in that schedule, we're asking for certain things because what you want to avoid is it being your schedule. A seasoned architect taught me that one when I was, I've been in 23, I must have been in my 22nd, my second year. No, it was a little older than that, but he wouldn't give me a schedule. Okay, where's the schedule? Where's the schedule? Where's the schedule? So he didn't give me a schedule, so I put one together and sent to him. So this is what we're gonna do. 6 months later, he let me know that wasn't his schedule, that was my schedule. So that was a lesson learned. So let me see your plan. I give him the parameters. Gotta have some parameters. So how are we gonna get there? But in those parameters, we ask for these milestones to be identified in the schedule.
Correct.
So do you?
Yeah.
And so do you guys approve their schedule?
If it was reasonable, we had some discussion. But you know, if you're dealing with honorable general contractors, now, a lion is a lion.
Right.
You can't expect, it's gonna be a lion. But they're reasonable. And they know, if they know what you're talking about, they will cooperate with you. If they don't, you should have some strong reservations. But hopefully that was already vetted during the selection process. And
Correct.
so the general contractors we had were all very good general contractors. I would definitely work with any one of them. And so that's how we were, like I said, we had some challenges, but they stepped up to the challenge because we had some honest, direct conversations.
Our expectations were laid out in the beginning of what we expected. There was no
Yeah.
waiver in that. We didn't have any choice. We had to get it done.
One thing I try and do, because, you know, general contractors at school district have a different business model. It's just different. They're to make as much money as they can. We're trying to protect and be good stewards of the funds and spend it wisely. And so they clash. So my thing is I'm upfront about everything. I tell everybody, you know, I'm not hiding anything. I'm telling you that we're a no change order district. If we're gonna do a change order, this is what it's gonna be. I tell them, look, I expect a fully functioning building. The plans and specifications there to show you the intent of it. And we're trying to be as thorough as we can. But let us know what the problems are. And we're trying to know those early. It's funny how once the project is bid and you don't hear anything for 6 months, and then 6 months you start getting all these requests for information. Because it takes us a year or more to do the plans and specifications. They look at them for 3 weeks, and they got, you know, they bid and everything, they estimate. They're estimating this job. So we want whatever you estimated in the job. So when I go to a printer and put something to print, a piece of paper should come out the other end of it. Don't tell me about the wire size and how they're wrong, or there was no wire. Or when we're going from a low roof to a high roof, and there's no lintel bar there, and you want to change order. When you estimate, how did you estimate to change the roof elevation? Present that, and we'll review it and get back with you. But we're going to take legitimate change orders. Legitimate one for us would be where the soil, you know, we test the soil, but you got a soft spot in between that wasn't tested. That's fair. We're going to pay you a fair price for it, too, to correct it. Yes?
First of all, I wish I had seen this presentation, I don't know, maybe a year ago as we brought 4 schools online this past summer. Very challenging. How much money would you say, if you were to quantify it, have you saved as a result of implementing this scheduling process, especially as it pertains to change orders that you mentioned?
Well, the change orders, we typically will see on a project, change orders all in, about 2.5% would be a fair project. If you start exceeding that, there's probably some design issues in the project. But that's what I've typically seen over the years. So monetarily, these contracts are estimating the project. So I can't say that I can tell you how much the scheduling has changed. I can just say it's a better moving process on the back end of it. It's the headaches that we're avoiding by doing that. But my thing is time is money. And I believe in general contractors making a profit. We need each other. They need us, we need them. And my thing is, I want to get you in and out as soon as possible. Once you leave our job, you're going to make money somewhere else. But you prolonging this process and all these changes, it's just costing everybody time and money.
Yes.
Is it on? Okay. Prior to working at a school district, I did recovery construction, claims mediation, and expert witnessing. One of the things that's common, whether it's in the United States, the South Pacific, Central America, it's all the same thing. People stop building a job and start building issues. But it starts in design, having a complete design. Errors and omissions are super important in your architectural design, making sure there's a passive control through the design process. Having a very good understanding of how long the project takes. Don't give them too much time because then they'll dog it, but give them enough time to actually get done. The last thing is a schedule. A schedule needs to be tight from the beginning. And if submittals is an issue, you have major buyout items, make sure you identify those clearly in your CPM schedule. The CPM schedule can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Because what they'll do is they'll take excerpts out of that and create fragments that they turn around and slap you with if they're a very litigious contractor. So it's really important to be very clear when you start the work, and then you can be successful.
Right.
The last thing is just remind them, a lot of owners that I've represented and on, up to $2 billion per project in Taipei for Department of Defense, is they didn't want to admit that there was a mistake. And then that's the key thing. Admit you made a mistake, admit that there's a design error, and then move on. When you don't, in that situation, it's about a $65 million mistake. So it's just, it's important. But in that clear relationship between you and your COO, just remember, if you're in a director of facilities or if you're a project manager, the best time to air out an issue is immediately, and everybody get on it and address it.
Agreed.
We have time for one more question here.
Can I just add one more thing? I think this is important. I want to say because it's true. Errors on omission. Try and get an honest conversation, because a lot of times I hear that the insurance companies don't allow the architects to admit there is an error. So what we've done is, there's no set of perfect drawings. We understand that. We're not expecting perfection. So we set a threshold of errors on omissions. And so they have a grace period. And once we cross that grace period, then we start holding them accountable for their errors and omission. That has worked well. And for the most part, we don't have any, we don't go after the architect for their errors and omissions because they stay below. If they got a good set of plans and drawings, we don't have that conversation.
You didn't talk about anything with your liquidated damages or and penalties that you hold the contractor accountable for.
I would prefer to have that conversation about the schedule and everything, because I have been not successful going after liquidated damages. It's just, it becomes a fight. I'd just rather focus on the work. We have them in our contracts. We do have them there, liquidated damages, but we never have gone after them. We just stay focused on the work. So we talk about what the excuses are during the project, so we don't get into liquidated damages.
And to add to that, we try to have that conversation before you actually pull the contract out. Everybody knows it when you go out to bid that it's there. But in saying so, you don't want to have that at the end when you know that there's trouble. That's why staying vigilant and in front, Michael, and staying in front of, and staying in front of the schedule and doing your inspections, having your whole team out there, visually seeing what's going on is highly important. Once you actually pull that sheet of paper out, you've lost the game. How do you keep it in control? You stay vigilant from the very beginning, and you constantly tell them what your expectations are. Our end date is X. It's not the substantial completion date. Yes. Correct.
It's not their first rodeo. They've done it before.
Yes. Well, we greatly appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for putting